Welcome to Mind Matters, where we delve into the complex issues at the forefront of psychological science. Tonight we're tackling a particularly challenging and often debated question. Is deception acceptable in psychological studies? This is a topic that touches the very core of research ethics and scientific integrity, prompting vigorous discussion among academics and the public alike. To help us navigate this complex terrain, we have two distinguished guests. Dr. Ben Carter, a respected research psychologist, who will argue for the conditional and ethical use of deception in specific research contexts, and Dr. Lena Hansen, an experienced ethics committee member and psychologist, who will argue against the use of deception, advocating for greater transparency. We will begin with opening statements from each of our guests, followed by a discussion and rebuttal, and conclude with their closing remarks. Our aim is to explore the nuances of this issue thoroughly.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. I want to begin by stating clearly that the use of deception in psychological research is not something to be taken lightly. It is a serious ethical matter that requires careful consideration and robust justification. However, I believe that to categorically dismiss it would be to hinder our ability to gain certain crucial insights into human behavior and mental processes. My position is that ethically reviewed and carefully controlled deception can be, and sometimes is, necessary to obtain valid and unbiased data, particularly when studying phenomena that are highly sensitive to participant awareness. Consider areas like subtle prejudice, conformity to group pressure, or even altruistic behaviors. If participants are fully aware of what is being measured, their responses can be significantly altered. This isn't because people are inherently dishonest, but because of well-documented psychological phenomena like demand characteristics, where participants try to behave in a way they think the researcher expects, or social desirability bias, where they present themselves in the most positive light. These natural human tendencies can unfortunately contaminate the data, rendering the findings unreliable or, worse, misleading. Historically, some of our most profound understandings of social psychology, such as the factors influencing the bystander effect or the mechanisms of obedience, have relied on methodologies that involved an element of deception. It's crucial to understand that we are not operating in an unregulated space. Contemporary psychological research is governed by stringent ethical safeguards. Institutional review boards, or IRBs, meticulously scrutinize research proposals involving deception. They operate on principles such as minimal risk, ensuring that any potential discomfort to participants is no greater than what they might encounter in everyday life. Furthermore, the potential scientific or societal benefits of the research must clearly outweigh these risks. A core requirement is that deception is only employed when no viable, non-deceptive alternative methods exist to answer the research question adequately. It must be a last resort, not a convenient shortcut. And perhaps most importantly, a comprehensive debriefing process is mandatory. After their participation, individuals are fully informed about the true nature of the study, the reasons for the deception, and its purpose. They are given the opportunity to ask questions, express their feelings, and critically to withdraw their data if they feel uncomfortable. This process is designed not only to inform, but also to mitigate any potential negative feelings and restore a sense of trust and respect. So while the ethical concerns are valid and must always be paramount, I argue that a blanket prohibition on deception would prematurely close doors to understanding complex aspects of human psychology that are difficult, if not impossible, to investigate through other means.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. While I appreciate Dr. Carter's points regarding the complexities of research, I must firmly state that from my perspective, the use of deception in psychological research is fundamentally problematic and, in many cases, unethical. My core argument rests on the bedrock principles of research ethics, informed consent, and respect for participant autonomy. When we deceive participants, we inherently violate these principles. Informed consent implies that individuals voluntarily agree to participate after having a clear understanding of what the study involves, including its purposes and any potential risks. Deception, by its very definition, means withholding or misrepresenting this crucial information. This isn't just a procedural issue, it's a moral one. It treats participants as means to an end, rather than as autonomous individuals deserving of honesty and transparency. Dr. Carter mentions debriefing, and while it's a necessary component if deception has occurred, it doesn't retroactively grant informed consent. Moreover, the potential for psychological harm is significant. Participants might experience stress, anxiety, embarrassment, or feel foolish and manipulated upon learning they were deceived. They might question their own judgment or feel a sense of betrayal. These negative experiences can linger long after the debriefing session, regardless of how well it is conducted. The argument of minimal risk can be quite subjective when it comes to emotional and psychological well-being. Beyond individual harm, deceptive practices have a corrosive effect on public trust. If people come to associate psychology with trickery, how can we expect them to trust our findings, our practitioners, or to willingly participate in future research? This erosion of trust can damage the reputation of our entire field, making it harder to conduct any research, deceptive or not, and diminishing our societal impact. I also question the pervasive assumption that deception is so often the only way to gather valid data. I believe this sometimes reflects a lack of creativity or insufficient investment in developing and validating non-deceptive methodologies. There are robust alternatives that respect participant autonomy from the outset. For instance, we can make greater use of observational studies in naturalistic settings, where behavior is observed as it naturally occurs, without intervention. Fully disclosed role-playing scenarios or simulations can provide valuable insights into how people might behave in certain situations. Vignette-based studies, where participants respond to hypothetical situations, can explore decision-making and attitudes without misleading anyone. Furthermore, advancements in implicit measures, like the implicit association test, allow us to tap into less conscious attitudes without deceiving participants about the study's broad aims. These methods uphold ethical standards and foster a research environment built on trust and collaboration, rather than manipulation. It's time we committed fully to these transparent approaches.
Thank you both for those clear opening statements. Dr. Carter, Dr. Hansen raises very important points about the potential for deception to undermine trust and the core principle of participant autonomy. Even with thorough debriefing, can we be certain that the feelings of being disrespected or the potential for psychological discomfort are fully mitigated? How do you specifically weigh these undeniable ethical costs against the scientific knowledge you believe is uniquely gained, particularly when Dr. Hansen suggests that viable alternative methodologies exist and should be prioritized?
Those are absolutely critical considerations, Dr. Reed, and I agree with Dr. Hansen that the ethical costs are serious and must be central to any discussion. Let me reiterate. The decision to use deception is never, or at least should never be, taken lightly. It truly is considered a last resort, after all non-deceptive avenues have been deemed insufficient for the specific research question at hand. Regarding debriefing, extensive research has actually been conducted on its effectiveness. When done properly, debriefing is not just a cursory explanation. It's an active process designed to educate participants about the study's value, explain why deception was employed, and meticulously address any distress or misconceptions. Studies have shown that a sensitive and thorough debriefing can be effective in mitigating negative feelings and even enhance participants' understanding of psychological research. Many participants report finding the experience educational once the rationale is explained. However, while I champion the development of alternative methods, and many are indeed excellent, I must gently question their universal applicability or whether they always yield data of equivalent validity for every research question. Some automatic, less conscious, or socially sensitive responses are incredibly difficult to capture authentically if participants are fully aware of the study's focus. The very act of knowing can change the behavior we aim to understand in its natural form.
Dr. Carter makes a case for the utility of debriefing, and I acknowledge that efforts are made. However, I remain skeptical that debriefing can consistently and completely undo the potential negative effects of deception for every individual. The feeling of being tricked or made to look foolish can be powerful, and for some, no amount of explanation after the fact will fully erase that discomfort or the sense of violated trust. We must ask ourselves if research findings are worth that risk to individual dignity. Even if research indicates that many participants are satisfied post-debriefing, what about the minority who are not? Are their experiences less valid or their feelings less important? I believe we must prioritize the well-being and trust of all participants above the pursuit of data that requires deception. Furthermore, I stand by my assertion that the perceived necessity of deception often warrants closer scrutiny. Is it truly necessary, or does it sometimes reflect a lack of creativity or insufficient investment in developing and validating non-deceptive methodologies? Perhaps the behaviors Dr. Carter describes as difficult to capture simply require more sophisticated, ethical approaches that we haven't fully explored, because deception has offered a seemingly easier path. We should be pushing the boundaries of ethical methodology, not defending practices that inherently compromise participant autonomy.
Dr. Hansen. Dr. Carter argues that for certain specific areas of psychological inquiry, for example, understanding unconscious biases or people's immediate unreflective reactions to sensitive social cues, non-deceptive methods might inherently alter the very behavior under investigation. This could, as he suggests, render the findings less valid or authentic. If we were to adopt a stance of strictly prohibiting all forms of deception, what crucial insights into human psychology do you believe we might risk losing? And how can the alternative methods you champion fully compensate for this potential loss of authenticity in capturing spontaneous behavior?
That is a fair question, Dr. Reed. I do acknowledge that some research questions, particularly those probing automatic responses or deeply ingrained biases, present significant methodological challenges if we commit to full transparency. However, I believe this challenge should not be seen as a justification for ethically questionable practices like deception. Instead, it should serve as a powerful catalyst for methodological innovation. Psychologists are an inventive group. If we dedicate the same intellectual rigor to developing non-deceptive techniques for these complex areas as we do to other aspects of research, I am confident we can make significant progress. Perhaps it means we need to refine our observational techniques, develop more nuanced physiological measures, or create more sophisticated simulation environments, where participants are fully aware they are in a study, but can still react authentically within its defined parameters. Moreover, by focusing on what can be studied with complete transparency and informed consent, we might cultivate a body of scientific knowledge that is not only robust, but also built on a foundation of unimpeachable ethical practice. This, in turn, would foster greater public trust. Ultimately, we must ask, is knowledge gained through means that compromise our ethical principles truly as valuable or as beneficial to society in the long run? I contend that the ethical cost diminishes its worth.
While I greatly respect Dr. Hansen's commitment to ethical purity and innovation, I must respectfully challenge the notion that all crucial insights can be gained without ever resorting to some form of deception, especially when dealing with deeply ingrained, automatic, or socially undesirable behaviors. Consider, for example, research aiming to understand the subtle, often unconscious cues that trigger discriminatory behavior in real-time interactions. If participants are explicitly told, "We are studying your potential biases," the likelihood of observing genuine, spontaneous reactions plummets. Their behavior would become guarded, overly monitored, and not reflective of everyday responses. This isn't about a lack of creativity. It's about the fundamental nature of certain psychological processes that are altered by direct scrutiny. A complete prohibition on deception could significantly impede our understanding of critical societal issues like bystander apathy in emergencies, the spread of misinformation, or the very mechanisms of prejudice we wish to combat. These are areas where unreflective, authentic responses are precisely what we need to study to develop effective interventions. Again, this is why the existing ethical framework, with its stringent IRB oversight, the principle of last resort, minimal harm, and mandatory debriefing, is so critical. It's not a license for widespread deception, but a carefully regulated pathway for essential research that cannot otherwise be conducted. The system is designed to prevent abuse and to ensure that any deception is minimal, justified, and its impact carefully managed. In closing, I want to emphasize that the decision to employ deception in psychological research is indeed complex and fraught with ethical considerations that we, as researchers, take extremely seriously. It involves a careful balancing act between our pursuit of vital scientific knowledge and our profound ethical duties to protect the rights and well-being of participants. It is never an easy choice. However, I maintain that when used responsibly, under the strict oversight of ethics committees, ensuring minimal risk, and always coupled with a thorough and compassionate debriefing, deception remains a valuable, albeit limited, tool. It allows us to gain insights into specific domains of human behavior and cognition that might otherwise remain obscured. The focus, therefore, should be on ensuring this responsible, ethical use and continued refinement of our guidelines, rather than an outright prohibition that could stifle our understanding of the human mind. Our goal is to understand, and sometimes understanding requires methods that are carefully managed for both ethical integrity and scientific validity.
To conclude, I must reiterate that the ethical imperatives of fully informed consent, respect for participant autonomy, and the cultivation of public trust are and must always be paramount in psychological research. While I understand the desire to uncover all facets of human behavior, I firmly believe that the potential harms and the inherent ethical compromises associated with deception generally outweigh its purported benefit. This is especially true when we consider that transparent, non-deceptive methodologies are not only available, but are also constantly being refined and developed. The existence of these alternatives challenges the notion that deception is indispensable. I call upon the psychological community to make a stronger, more unified commitment to upholding the very highest ethical standards by actively choosing to move away from deceptive practices wherever possible. Let us invest our energies in fostering a research culture that champions transparency, respect, and genuine partnership with our participants. This is the path to a more trustworthy and ethically sound psychological science.
Dr. Carter, Dr. Hansen, thank you both for an exceptionally insightful and thought-provoking discussion on such a challenging topic. Your distinct perspectives have truly illuminated the complexities involved. It's clear that this debate touches upon a fundamental tension within scientific inquiry: the compelling drive to expand our knowledge of human psychology versus the absolute necessity of protecting research participants and upholding unwavering ethical principles. As we've heard, there are strong arguments on both sides, highlighting different priorities and concerns regarding how we best achieve these often competing goals. This is, without a doubt, an ongoing and vital conversation within the field of psychology, one that will continue to evolve as our methods and our understanding of ethics develop further. I want to thank our viewers for joining us on Mind Matters for this important discussion. We hope it has provided you with a deeper appreciation of the issues